Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is Childcare Rockstar Radio, episode 159, featuring Dr. Donna Housman. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am thrilled to have you here. I am Kris Murray, your host, and it's Childcare Rockstar Radio. We're at episode 159, and today I want to introduce you to Dr. Donna Housman, founder of the Housman Institute. Incredible lady with decades of experience in early learning and helping young ones and our adolescents as well, dealing with emotional trauma and learning emotional regulation and giving those skills and techniques to adults and teachers and leaders as well. So Dr. Housman is based in Massachusetts, and in today's podcast, we dive into the so important topic, and we've talked about this topic before a few times on the podcast over the last 18 to 24 months coming out of COVID, with regard to all the increases in troubled behaviors that we see in our world, from the little ones to medium-aged and to adults, including anxiety, challenging behaviors in the classroom, stress-related behaviors, isolation, and even tough emotions like anger and despair and fear. So those all can be helped and addressed by having better tools in your toolbox around emotional regulation and emotional intelligence. So that's what we're going to talk about here on the podcast today. Dr. Donna Housman has over 35 years of experience as a psychologist in the field of child development and early childhood education. Her vision, she states, emotion is our first language. From a baby's first cry, we have an unparalleled opportunity to inform and shape the patterning of the brain's architecture for lifelong learning, mental health, well-being, and success. And so here today on the podcast, we dive in to that vision and help you guys in this very, very important and powerful topic. Myself, I just got back from a 2.5-week vacation. I'm fresh off the cruise ship. My daughter Maeve and I went on a Rome, Italy, through the islands of Greece, and then ended in Barcelona. It was an 11-day cruise, and it was incredible. And we had 3 nights on either end in both Rome and Barcelona to experience those amazing cities as well. So I was completely blown away by Rome. This is my second time to Italy. The first time was through the ancient hill towns of Tuscany, and had never been to Rome. And let me tell you, it really blew me away. Such a gorgeous city. I think it's definitely the prettiest city, and with the highest level of history. And they've kept, of course, all of their beautiful historic features and structures, and the Colosseum. And we went inside and got all sorts of tours, and I just experienced it fully. And of course, the food. I mean, come on, y'all. Who doesn't love the food and the wine of Italy, as well as Greece? The Greek food was insanely delicious. And they actually grow grapes in Santorini, which was my number one destination of this trip, because my whole life I've had Santorini, Greece at the top of my bucket list. So I got to achieve that, check that one off. And that was an incredible day. We hired a private driver and we went around the island and we went to the beach and experienced all sorts of things in Santorini and got the incredible views and the incredible pictures, the blue domes, the whole thing. And then 3 days in Barcelona to finish it off. By then we were a little bit tired, and the heat and the humidity also kicked our butts. So those are some highlights of what we experienced. We also made a lot of friends with the folks on the cruise. There were a lot of Brits. and a lot of Italians and folks from all different European countries on the cruise. Not as many Americans. There was definitely a good chunk of Americans, but it was more international. And so that was really, really fun for us as well. So my daughter and I both made friends from London and across the globe. So an experience I will not soon forget. And however, I have to say I am glad to be back. And I am glad to be home in the beautiful mountains of Colorado, where we have cool nights and no humidity. So very blessed to have that experience with my daughter and to be with you here on this episode 159. It's a very important topic, as I mentioned. And one other thing I want to tell you before we dive in with Dr. Housman is this is your kind of last chance call, guys, for Child Care Success Summit tickets. We are now just a handful of weeks. I think we're about 6.5 weeks away from the 13th annual Child Care Success Summit in Orlando, Florida, October 12th to the 14th. Do not miss it. We just announced earlier today Mr. Kevin Brown as our third keynote speaker, joining the beloved ranks of Mr. Vernon Mason, as well as the People's Shark Tank's very own Damon John will be joining us. And so we have three amazing keynote speakers coming in, as well as our own crew, our own team, our own community. You'll be hearing from childcare leaders and owners on the stage. You'll be hearing from me, of course, as the host, and all of our coaching team as well throughout. So we are diving in full force for the final planning recipe that brings it all together, bringing it home with the Child Care Success Summit 2023. And you got to be there, and you got to get tickets and get registered to be there. So this is your last call. By the time I record the next episode of the podcast, we will likely be sold out. My team tells me we only have a handful of tickets left, and they are going like hotcakes. So you're not going to want to miss out. Go to childcaresuccesssummit.com and get one of the remaining tickets so that you can be there with me and with us and have an incredible experience and really build the assets of your business. This is all about business content. And we have one other amazing speaker I didn't mention too, who's from the industry, also from the mergers and acquisitions field, Mr. Nathan Kelly from Founders. And he brings a wealth of knowledge from other industries in the, not so much mergers and acquisitions, in the exiting your business and selling your business, the buy-sell business brokerage component. He does have information about what's happening industry-wide in terms of M&A activity and in terms of private equity activity. And he's going to be bringing all that knowledge to the main stage as well. So that's Mr. Nathan Kelly will be joining me on stage, and we're going to be talking about the trends in the world of expansion, acquisition, and then exiting your business for the highest level of wealth building. So if those things are interesting to you, you definitely got to get a ticket. childcaresuccesssummit.com. And guys, I'm serious. We will sell out here shortly, probably in the next 7 to 10 days, if not sooner. So at the time that I'm recording this, the last week of August going into Labor Day, you got to get in there and get your ticket. All right. Without any further ado, we are going to hear from Dr. Donna Housman right now. Meet her and get some more tools in your toolkit to help children and adults around emotional intelligence. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, folks. I am Kris Murray, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to a special guest today, Dr. Donna Housman. Dr. Housman, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you. Where are you located? Where are you sitting right now?
I'm in Brookline, Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yes.
So you reside in the suburbs of Boston?
Yes. Yes.
Very good. And how long have you lived there? Are you from there?
Yes, I'm from here. I've been here for over 20 years.
Okay. Great. Well, I love Boston. Great town. Tell us more about your background. What do you do related to the world of early childhood education?
I've been in the world of early childhood education as long as I can remember. I started out as a psychologist working with children and adolescents who are struggling with issues around depression, anxiety, suicide, and trauma. And I realized at that time, although different, there was a real common thread uniting them all, and that was an inability to really manage and deal with big emotions. And I thought at the time, if we could get to these kids sooner, much earlier, when the brain is very malleable and developing, that we could possibly really help change the trajectory of early childhood education and really helping children to develop these critical competencies that could provide them with success in learning and their emotional life, their social life for the rest of their life. And that's what I ended up doing. I started a child development center many decades ago with emotional development at the core of the entire center, realizing that it's far easier to prevent than repair. And so I decided that in starting the center with emotions, as I said, at the core, it was going to be critical in terms of really allowing for early childhood education to be a fundamental and foundational platform and context for children to really learn and develop in ways that would be really important and meaningful for them. And understanding too that the educator was really essential and foundational in helping children to develop these really formative skills as they continue to grow and develop. And this Child Development Center ended up becoming the lab school for Housman Institute.
Okay.
Yes. And so it was really based on emotional foundations of learning and cognition. And it was informed by research in neuroscience, child development, and education by putting emotional competence at the center and creating this whole holistic environment where we were addressing the needs of the children, the families, and also the professional and developmental and training needs of the educator. And this approach that really looked at emotional, cognitive, and social early learning, we called ECCEL, which is an acronym for emotional, cognitive, and social early learning. And it was developed, researched, and proven to make a significant difference, not only for the children, but for the families and educators as well.
Awesome. So when did you have this realization? How long ago did you say, aha, I want to be able to impact adolescents at this early age and stage? And so kind of like, when did that happen? How long ago was that?
Well, I started the Child Development Center back in the mid 80s.
Okay.
So it was a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah.
It has been.
Good. That became the lab school. So then Housman Institute, were you developing kind of the research and the framework for the Institute kind of alongside of that?
Exactly, because the Institute really became the organization where we provide the training, the coaching, the materials, the tools, the techniques. I'm writing children's storybooks, all around helping children really to develop emotional intelligence, if you will, really being able to become smart about their emotions, because emotions, as we know, is so central in everything that we do.
Yes, very much so. We're going to dive in and talk a little bit about emotional regulation for children and for educators. That's going to be our core topic. Before we get there, I just want to ask you a little bit more about your personal journey. Like, what is life like at home for you? Share something that you're interested in, maybe a hobby, a fun fact. Just tell us a little bit more about Dr. Donna, if you don't mind me calling you that.
I love books. I do. I'm a voracious reader.
Okay.
And books have always been something that's been a resource, a refuge for me ever since I've been very young. And so, escaping into books is something I really enjoy. I love being outdoors. I love being out in the fresh air. And I just love to be around people too, and children. I've always had a love of kids ever since, I've been very young.
Right. Love that. Awesome. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about this emotional regulation piece. So first of all, why is it important for children to be exposed to these techniques or concepts? What kind of differences have you seen in this work for children specifically? If you want to share any stories or case studies or examples.
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, emotions is critical in everything that we do. It's our first language. All children are born with the first language of that being emotion. And it really drives our thinking, our behavior, our feeling, how we relate and in our relationships, and developing a really strong and positive sense of self. And there's a direct connection between emotions and learning. And when feelings aren't managed, it can really impair our thinking, our problem solving, grasping new concepts, all these, quote, executive function skills that are so necessary in learning. And when the brain is dealing with dysregulated emotion, it can't learn. And so it is really important to start as early as we can in terms of helping children to really develop these competencies when the brain is most malleable and growing the fastest. At birth, there's 1 million new neural connections that are forming every second. And what is really important and how the brain is really developing in a healthy way is through the kinds of experiences that children are having on a regular basis, and also the types of relationships that they are developing and learning from. And so it's a wonderful opportunity for us to really help, again, lay the foundation for children, not only in terms of their emotional well-being, but also in terms of their mental health and learning.
Mm-hmm. So what are some actual techniques that you do in this program, in the Begin to Excel program? Tell us a little bit about how educators can help guide children on this journey.
Sure. The approach that we use, as I mentioned a moment ago, is called EXCEL. And it's, again, an acronym for Emotional, Cognitive, Social Early Learning. And when we think about helping children to develop these competencies, we really look at the building blocks of emotional intelligence and what we've created so that there are 4 quadrants, if you will. And these quadrants really help to walk through the steps in helping children to develop these competencies. So we're looking at emotion knowledge on the one hand, in terms of knowledge about our emotions. How do we begin to recognize and identify and label emotions and discern between and among different emotions? Oftentimes, the 2 emotions that come to mind, anger and sadness, get conflated, and they are very different. And one way that I describe the difference is that anger is getting something we don't want, whereas sadness is not getting something we do want.
Right.
It's really important to discern between and among and helping children to know the difference. And then we also are helping children to be able to connect what their emotions and behavior, the connection, cause and effect. That behavior just doesn't happen. There's a reason we act the way that we do or behave in the way that we do. And it's important to understand what is motivating us. What is the emotion behind it? And the more we can help children begin to recognize that, the more we can help them begin to articulate what the emotion is and what caused it. I often speak to people that I'm training is that we don't necessarily want to ask, why are you feeling this way? Because oftentimes we don't know why.
That's right.
But being able to say, what is making you feel frustrated? What is making you feel angry right now is much more concrete, and it allows the person to say, well, that person just wrote over all of my drawings or broke my tower or whatever the reason may be.
Mm-hmm.
And we can start getting into, well, how do we express how we're feeling in terms of now getting into helping them deal with emotion regulation. So how do we regulate these emotions, these big emotions that we're feeling so that they don't overtake us? because the worst feeling that anybody can have is feeling out of control.
Right.
So that we want to help them begin to express these emotions in constructive ways, either verbally or through gestures, a hug, a kiss, or actually saying, I'm angry or I'm excited or whatever that may be. And then helping them begin to manage the intensity of their emotions, both positive and negative. And we often tell children that all our emotions are fine. The cozy ones that feel good and the prickly ones that don't. And it's what we do with these emotions that really are most important. And we're going to help you learn how to deal with these big emotions so you can continue to engage with friends, learn, explore, and discover, and do all the things that you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Love that. So with the 4 quadrants, we have knowledge. So your example of the knowledge, just understanding about the difference between anger versus sadness, for example. And then we have behavior. So just take us through those quadrants again.
So the quadrants are, if you kind of look at 4 quadrants. On the left-hand side are 2 quadrants that really fall under emotion knowledge. And that is recognizing, labeling, identifying what I'm feeling. Am I feeling angry, excited, sad, whatever that emotion may be, and helping through visuals to see what those differences are. So we have lots of tools that we use to help children recognize what an emotion looks like.
Cool.
For them to look into to see, do I look like this picture, and we have these emotion cards, things of this sort, all these kinds of tools to help them begin to recognize and discern between and among. And then again, it's understanding the differences between and among emotions and being able to recognize them and their friend across their play space as well. Because part of what we're doing is not only helping them become smart about their own emotions and managing them, but also becoming smart and understanding the emotions of others and getting into perspective taking and empathy and compassion and all of these critical skills that are so important for children to be developing.
Mm-hmm. And so you're giving these tools and you're working with educators as well as leaders, I would assume.
Educators as well.
Okay.
And that's the left side. Then on the right side is the emotion regulation part.
Mm-hmm.
How do we express, experience, and manage and regulate these big emotions?
Okay.
And walk them through all the different ways to be able to do that. And part of what is so important, because children develop in the context of relationships, is helping the adult to become aware of their own emotionality as well.
Very, very important work and so this podcast is going out to potentially thousands of leaders and business owners in the space. So for people listening, tell us more about like what you're at the services or what you're doing at the Institute, and you have your lab school. Is the lab school still running?
Yes, we have a lab school now in Boston, and we have partnered with schools there, and our program and our training is ongoing and it is working beautifully. We're working with a whole range of demographics in terms of children. And the feedback that we're getting is that it is working beautifully.
Great.
With young children and again, across all demographics.
Yeah. No, I love that. This is fantastic. So so how do we get this work out into the world in a bigger way? So how are you actually, the modalities of how you're training and working to give these tools to educators? Let's just talk about that, because I'm sure that you've got people in Massachusetts that are, utilizing your services, but what about the rest of the country? Talk a little bit about that.
So the way we've created Housman Institute is that we really have created a whole suite of courses where the educator, the leaders are able to take these courses that are, filled with animation and videos and opportunities, tons of resources so that it's really fun for them to be learning this. But we also have live coaching as well, because what we've learned is that learning about material is one thing, but having that continual feedback and coaching and support in terms of implementing this is critical. And so as they're learning and they're going through each course, they're also being asked to implement so that they're learning and applying and implementing at the same time and continuing to get the feedback and support that they need. We also have many tools to help them enhance what it is they're learning. The most important tool is the educator and the parent. They're the significant adults in the child's world, and how they guide and model and respond to them is critical, and how children are taking that information in and learning, because we know that children learn through observations, imitation, and how we guide, model, and respond to them. Mm-hmm. So that is why we also train the educator and the parent in helping them become emotionally aware, because, we are subject to our own emotional fingerprints in terms of what's happened in our lives and how we've dealt with our emotions. And oftentimes, we've learned to either to shut down, walk away, or, let the emotions take over and bubble over, or we end up thinking we're going to explode, or we explode. And none of these ways have been helpful in really helping to deal more effectively and successfully with the emotions and the task at hand. And so we train the educator and parent, the adult as well, in becoming more aware of their own emotionality, how to deal with it, and be able to express it in more constructive ways so that they are able to not only feel better themselves in what they're doing, and also in terms of their own relating and relationships, but also in the work that they're doing with the children and families, and helping to model and guide them through these processes as well. Books, as I said earlier, is a love of mine.
Yeah.
Children's books with the same intent. These books are also aligned with a curriculum that we've created, which is, Excellent Adventures. And it's a curriculum and help, with puppets and emotional scenarios, and a whole curriculum for the entire year, and helping the educator teach children how to begin to kind of go through those 4 quadrants, as I was saying, but it's done through stories, and it's done through experiences that children have actually gone through themselves. So these books are really comprised of animals, a diverse community of animals that are the characters in these stories. Mm-hmm. And the lead characters are otter siblings, Hemi and Shemi, and they really take the children on adventures that they go through, typically in terms of issues that they're struggling with, they've experienced, observed, and helping them learn how to go through these experiences that resonate for the child in really helpful ways, learning strategies that help them deal with their own emotions, understanding what's going on around them. So the focus may be on loss or death or bullying, or diversity, differences, inclusivity, anxiety, all kinds of things that children are struggling with. And these books help children go through these experiences in fun and relatable ways, but also they were written for the adult, because in the stories at the back, there are a whole page of tips for the adult to help them understand how children are processing these experiences and how to open up conversations about this with children, and tips to be able to enhance these conversations with children, as well as a whole page of questions that go through the story and helping to individualize the experience for the child that's being read to, or the group of children that are being read to. Mm-hmm. So
I love that. So when you were talking about animals representing emotions and being a big part of this curriculum and these stories, what came into my mind, Dr. Housman, was Winnie the Pooh, because I was thinking about Piglet kind of representing fear and anxiety, and Eeyore representing boredom, pessimism, sadness, and Tigger representing joy and excitement and overexuberance and enthusiasm. So it's kind of interesting, because I feel like we have these early examples in literature of using animals to express human emotion. And I love, Winnie the Pooh and all the characters. So I'm sure that your work it's building on that and even taking it to a deeper, much more broad level and a deeper level. And so I just love that. So I just didn't know if you were a Winnie the Pooh fan and if that characterization am I hitting the nail on the head a little bit with that as an early?
I was a fan of all children's literature.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the one of the books that was one of my favorites as a child was The Little Engine That Could.
Yes, very much so. Me too.
Of that book.
Yes.
Perseverance and not giving up, and you can do it. And that. So yes, I think children's literature is so important because it's a rich resource and it really provides for building emotional vocabulary, critical thinking skills, problem solving abilities, a sense of agency and empathy.
Yes.
So all of this is so important, and children love books.
Yeah.
So it's another resource for children to really be learning about all of this.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I wanted to ask you, with your own mindset and your own approach to emotional intelligence, when things go wrong in your life, things happen on our adult journey, things that you might do as a practice to help refocus you into presence, into awareness, into acceptance, into emotional intelligence. Do you have any go-tos, strategies when you're having some difficulties?
Oh yeah. Deep breathing.
Okay.
Is the beginning of being able to kind of anchor oneself. And that's important when you're going through some kind of difficult times, to really kind of re-anchor, refocus, so that you can kind of tackle whatever it is that's in front of you. And what's so important about deep breathing is that it really actually kind of regulates the nervous system, as well as it really decreases the heart rate. And it then allows the brain to release endorphins, which it really calms the body and allows one to start to kind of think and problem solve and things of this sort. So deep breathing is not the beginning, middle, and end. It's just the beginning step. So then we can kind of access what is going on, what is making me feel this way? What is causing me to feel this way? And what can I do to make it better? Mm-hmm. And so it is allowing yourself, also giving yourself permission to have the feeling, and also to accept the feeling. And that is not the same thing as accepting the behavior. It's accepting the feeling so that you can begin to understand, as I said earlier, all emotions are fine. It's what we do with them that matters most. And then beginning to set strategies in place to be able to solve the problem and be able to move forward and, achieve our aims, our dreams, our goals, whatever it may be ahead of us.
Right. Because I love that example or just that practice of realizing that all emotions are fine, and giving yourself permission to feel an emotion that might not be a positive emotion. But the fact that you just have the awareness and the acceptance of it, but you're not going to actually do anything with the emotion. So if you're feeling anger or jealousy or even rage or something that is very powerful and potentially not a positive thing, just sitting with it, having the awareness to it is, 1,000%, like, it's very, very accepting and it happens. This is part of our human journey. But so trying not to resist it. In other words, if you go to a place of resistance, that's not going to get you anywhere, because then it's just you're still going to carry it around in your body. And then you might pop off and do something that you would regret,
That typically is what happens.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I'll use the metaphor that, you have a glass jar and you have the top screwed on, you have a little hole with a tube that's pumping air into it. But there's no way for this air to get out. So what eventually happens to the jar when you continue to pump air into it? It's going to...
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And it's no different when we're just kind of just sitting on a whole bunch of big emotions. If there's not a way to express them and begin to identify what it is and what's making us feel that way, then it's just going to sit and languish and build to a point of not doing any good for yourself or anybody around us.
Right. Right. Well, this is very, very, really, amazing work that you're doing. So how can people access your resources? So you've got courses, you've got books, children's books, trainings, coaching. Tell us more about how people can find you and find it.
Well, what we've done recently too is we've launched a grant training program where we're actually have asked people who may be interested in our training, which is a training. Again, we have about 8 to 12 courses. We're training teachers, leaders, also in reflective practice, as well as how to help children develop all of these competencies. And we're not just dealing with emotions, we're dealing with social development and cognitive development. So we're really helping children really develop the competencies in terms of developing a healthy mental health, as well as the ability to continue to learn. And today, particularly in terms of what we're all facing, despite the fact that we've turned the corner from a health pandemic, we're turning into a mental health pandemic. And this is where children need our help more than ever. And not just the kids, the adults too.
Yeah.
All gone through an unprecedented time over the last several years. And there are consequences for that and an aftermath of that, which everybody is struggling with. So we really need to have ways to help children deal with all of this so that they can be available to engage and relate to one another in healthy ways and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Both those areas, their mental health and their learning, has really been challenged greatly over the last several years, and they need our help to be able to move forward.
Well, and that's been the biggest feedback I've gotten from the people that we coach, the leaders and owners of these ECE programs, is that the biggest issue post-COVID has been classroom behaviors and just helping children manage their behaviors, period. It's the number one by far issue that has emerged. So you're right. We are in a bit of maybe a don't mental health pandemic. And, I think we're talking about it, but I think sometimes a lot of people, we don't probably talk about it enough, and we don't talk about it as openly and as vulnerably as maybe we should be. So I'm really glad that you and I are having this conversation today. Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand that there is a direct connection between emotions and learning. And if the brain is overwhelmed by dysregulated emotion, it can't learn. So we have to help children deal with this dysregulated emotion that's getting enacted in their behavior. And whether they're shutting down or just exploding, neither one is being effective in terms of helping them continue to develop and grow in healthy ways. We need to step in and help them do it. And there are ways which we're doing that is working. And the research that we've done over the years has shown that it's proved that these skills that we are helping educators and parents learn and develop to teach the children has been very, very effective, significantly so. Mm-hmm. So in relation to your question, what do we do to help children? It's through, training the educator, the parent, the leader, and also being able to provide them with the tools that we've created. For example, we've created a make peace table. And that make peace table really kind of unites emotion and cognition. It's when a child in the heat of the moment, and that's when we're working with children as well, not when they're just settled down.
Right.
We can talk about emotions then, which is fine. And that's just called kind of causal talk.
Yeah.
But we really enter in when the children are in the heat of the moment, when they're unraveling, when they're tantruming, when really having an episode. Mm-hmm. And then we go in and we begin when they're on high alert to be able to help them in that moment begin to feel more anchored, to develop more of a physiological control first. And that's where the deep breathing comes in first. So then they can then access their thinking so that they can then begin to say, what is the problem? And then the friend across their play space explains what the problem is for them. What are they feeling? And then they choose one of these figures that we have 15 different emotions that are reflected in these characters, and they put them on this thermometer to indicate how intense this feeling is. And then they're asked to think of ways to solve the problem. And then they come up, the teacher may come in and help prompt some, suggestions as well, depending upon the age, because we work with children from birth all the way up through 8 years of age. And they choose a solution, they agree on it, they follow through, and then they reflect back on how they feel. And then they recognize that they were instrumental in being able to come up with a solution. It didn't have to be told to them by the adult.
Right.
They are developing critical thinking skills, ways to come up with solutions to solve the problem so they can continue to go back, play, learn, and do what to do as kids.
I love it. It's fantastic. So how can people find out more about your resources? Is there a website? Amazon?
It's called HousmanInstitute.org.
Okay.
There they can learn about what we do, all the training that's available, the tools, the techniques, the books as well. And also, if they go there, there's a form they can join, and they can subscribe to our newsletters, to our blogs, to our tips and techniques on what to do in situations. There's a whole host of resources available for them.
Wonderful.
Tap into.
Thank you. And so also, do you have any trainers, coaches, or speakers that are trained in your methodology that travel, that can go and do talks at centers and schools?
As a matter of fact, we are going across the country as well. So although we originated in Massachusetts, there are many states that are asking for our services, so that we are going across the country and really providing this important training and resource for educators and parents and leaders across the country as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because a lot of our folks do bring in, they do staff training days and parent training workshops and lots of things where they're doing on-site training with hundreds of their teachers and educators. So to have somebody come in and be able to be hands-on with them, it would be a huge game changer.
Right. And one of the beauties of the training too, Kris, is that, these courses are, digital courses, but they're, as I said, very animated, so that the person who's taking it can do it at their own time when it works for them. And there are, questions in there, ways to implement. And also there's a group forum sharing where everybody within their school or district or across different states, they come together and they can talk together online. And the coaches monitor it to make sure that whatever questions are coming up are really getting addressed, as well as the coaches live are speaking with the directors and mentors within the school to be able to give them continued feedback as they are mentoring other teachers in the school as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience? What's on your plate for the rest of 2023, 2024? Where are you headed? What are you working on?
Okay, so what we're working on is really getting into as many schools as possible across the country with our training and our coaching, as well as the tools and techniques that we have. Because we want to make sure as many children as possible can benefit from this program. And we know through the research that we have done and that has been peer-reviewed and published, we know that it works. And so we're very excited about doing this. So for the rest of 23 into 24,
nice.
To have as many children as possible benefit from this, as well as the educators and parents.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation, Dr. Donna Housman. I have loved being able to share this with our audience. It sounds like these are incredible resources, and I can't wait for folks to take advantage of them and see where you take it in the future. So thank you so much for being here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Same. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. We will come back to you on our next episode. And thanks again, Dr. Donna Housman. Go take advantage of the resources at HousmanInstitute.org. And we'll see everybody next time. Take care and God bless. I hope you liked this episode of Childcare Rockstar Radio. If you did, please share it with someone you know and help spread the word to your friends in our industry and on social media. Childcare business success is my passion, and I'm honored to be on this journey with you. As a thank you for listening, learn more about how to grow your business and make more income with our brand new free quiz, the What's My Number One Income Killer quiz, exclusively for preschool and childcare owners. Take the quiz today at childcarequiz.com to discover what your number one income killer is and how to solve it. Take care and God bless.